Here we go. Hmm. Interesting. All right. I think I had to re-sign in. Okay. Hello, everybody. Lori Swanson here. Hopefully, you're seeing me out on LinkedIn and out there on YouTube and Instagram, Facebook. I had to re-sign in. It asked me to re-sign into to LinkedIn, so I'm hoping you're all seeing me there. And let me introduce myself. My name's Lori Swanson. I'm the CEO of Inspire Tech, the founder of Career Alchemy Academy, where we gather to, um, uh, create careers and lives we love, to change work culture so it works for all of us. We're to feel confident in our job search and in negotiations and in our career paths, and making sure that the work we're doing in the world, our form of service, is a reflection of who we are today, our authentic uh, true nature is being reflected in the work we're doing that is pointed towards our North Star, right? And all of that makes work so much more joyful and really easier. And who couldn't use more ease, right? So that's who I am. Private coaching, Career Alchemy Academy membership, or I don't know, the membership to join. So come into my world, come in and let's work together. Let's figure these things out if you're at a crossroads, and get you back on track, aligned with who you are and how you're meant to be working, for whom you're meant to be working, if it's yourself or for corporate. We'll untangle all of those um, questions you might be having, any of that confusion, and we'll get you moving forward. So, today's topic is an interesting one, not exactly corporate, but a little leaning into my spirit-centered approach that I take into coaching. But I'm talking about a surprising career slash leadership skill that corporate culture needs more of. And no, it's not empathy. It's not collaboration. It's not even authenticity. You might think that would be what I'm talking about. It's kindness. And here's the thing. So, driving downtown Chicago, going to an event per the usual from the suburbs, and listening to NPR, and they had just really half listening to NPR, right? Just noise in the background as I'm driving. And all of a sudden, they introduce the next show, and it's going to be on the topic of kindness. And I thought to myself, all right, I'm going to listen to that. I'm going to listen to that because, and I really expected to hear about self-care, because we're in a world of, taking care of, and I'm not diminishing this. I think it's kind of this pendulum theory that I live in, is that we were in have been in, um, centuries old for women, of putting others in front of ourselves. And in order for that to rebalance, we entered into this time of self-reflection and self-care, and putting ourselves first, rightfully so that, the old adage of, putting the oxygen mask on ourselves first, so then we can have the capability to serve and help others as needed. You know, um, so yes, self-care, keep doing it. And that's kind of what I thought they were going to talk about, was more self-care tips, right? More self-care tips, um, you know, about, how to schedule my day, or making sure I get those massages in my calendar, or more rest, or more water, or more movement. I always am interested in hearing those because there might be some little nugget in there that I wasn't already thinking about or hadn't done in a long time for my own personal self-care that might bring back into into the rotation, so to speak. So that's kind of what I was expecting, but it was completely different than that. So we're talking about kindness, but not necessarily self-kindness. So there was a researcher on the conversation, and I think this is back in October or something, 2025, October, November 2025. But her name was Naomi, let me get this right, Eisenberger. She's a psychologist, and she had done research on socially isolated individuals during COVID. And what she found was that self-care, so you're feeling socially isolated, right? And and you would think that you need to take care of yourself, not only physically but mentally and emotionally during COVID, and that is very, very true. But what they found and when you have, kind self-care going on, you will improve a lot of things, your emotional and mental health. Those things do improve when you take care of yourself. But they found in this research that actually performing acts of kindness, either random acts or planned acts of kindness, outperformed the traditional self-care markers significantly. So what I mean by that is when you're performing, acts of self-care on on yourself, your mental health improves, but the act of performing an act of kindness for someone else ratchets that up significantly, right? So your mental health improves, depression and anxiety reduces, stress reduces, like cardiovascular stress reduces. And again, they're measuring these things. Loneliness was people reporting that they were less lonely. Their inflammation had decreased, and their antiviral responses had increased. Pretty important during COVID, right? So I was just blown away by Naomi's research on this. And there was another news flash, and this was from some other research that was being done, but another news flash on kindness is that it's not niceness. So do not confuse niceness with kindness. A niceness can be, if we're talking about corporate careers, right? Or even, even as a CEO of your own business, you're a solopreneur or, whatever, that kindness is different than niceness. Niceness can be seen as kind of a strategic move, like I'm going to be, like brown nosing. We've all heard that, in order to, cozy up to the people I need to help influence, what I want in my career, either promotion, a raise, a new client, recommendation, those sorts of things. It can also be a protective measure. So, if you're not feeling psychologically safe in some sort of a toxic work culture, you might lean into being nice so that you're not creating any sort of conflict. Um, and that can backfire. And it backfires because people, you knew who the brown nosers were, right? You didn't love those people. Um, it feels performative. Um, and when we're protecting ourselves instead of standing up for ourselves, creating stronger boundaries, pushing back on things that don't seem right in a culture, even in a little ways, besides the fact that it impacts because it's disingenuous. So, a brown noser is disingenuous, but you're being disingenuous to your own inner compass when you become, nice, right? And again, women are taught to be nice from a very young age. It still happens. Be polite, use your manners, be nice, and don't it keeps us from speaking our truth. It has kept us from speaking our truth. Yes, I've seen improvement. When I look at my daughter and her friends, and the younger, earlier in their career, coaching clients, I definitely see progress, which I'm so proud of. But I also know that there's still this fear of speaking up. And so we lean into niceness instead of saying, hey, that doesn't seem quite right, sort of thing. So, um, it niceness doesn't, and I think the bigger thing about this is niceness doesn't change dysfunctional corporate cultures. It reinforces it. So it can be protective, it can be performative, it can be disingenuous, it can be strategic in some ways. But ultimately, being nice doesn't change a dysfunctional corporate culture. It reinforces a dysfunctional corporate culture. I'm pausing so those words can sink in. Kindness is different. Kindness is a belief about your contribution, so it's very intentional. It doesn't require you to be inauthentic or to abandon your values, to be someone you're not. You know, when you're kind, you're just simply kind. And it matters especially in corporate environments that have been built on and continue to hold up, um, rewarding like image management over impact. So kindness creates safety without shrinking your power. So, and one of the big reasons for this, and again, this was from research that Jonathan Haidt had done, another researcher scientist. He introduced the idea that there are three participants in a kindness cycle. So, of course, if I'm going to do an act of kindness, I'm one of the participants, not recipients, but participants. I'm one of the participants as the person who's doing the act of kindness. I'm the doer. And it makes sense that the person who's receiving my act of kindness is a participant and is, the person who does the act of kindness, the person who receives the act of kindness are participating in this kindness cycle. Totally makes sense. But the piece that Jonathan Haidt showed us was that there's three participants, the third one being the observer of the kindness. So the observer actually has a very big influence on company culture through their observation, and then what they do with that determines whether kindness is scales inside of a team or a company, or if it just dies on the vine. So if you're the observer of kindness, let me just give you an example. If you're the observer of kindness, in true kindness, someone does something at work for someone else, you could choose to kind of roll your eyes at it, right? Giving that, dismissive whatever to it. And that is, kindness just, there's nowhere for kindness to go in that energy. Or you could just ignore that it happened, not pay any attention to it, and then there's no positive impact that's happened with what you observed. But finally, if you choose to observe and then take an action, specifically like calling it out, that begins the kindness ripple effect that's going to change a corporate culture. So you give a shout out to someone who pushed back in a meeting on an idea that they felt needed a little more discussion, which is a courageous thing to do. And you see someone else, acknowledge that, and then you back that up, right? Or when someone acknowledges someone's contribution on a project, you give in, uh, spot it, right? You're spotting kindness. That's what we've been talking about inside of Career Alchemy Academy, because kindness is the word of the month inside of your Career Alchemy Academy. And we've been talking about spotting kindness, like how kind we are just naturally. that we forget, these little things that we just do because we're kind people, but also spotting kindness in others so we can be the observer of that and then acknowledging the person who extended the kindness, reinforcing the kindness act in some way through shout outs or just the noticing of what someone did in order to acknowledge someone else or what they did for the team or anything like that. It's observing it and then pointing it out both to the doer and the receiver, but also to the community at large. The observer has real power. Like I said, they get to help kind of define a behavioral standard of kindness by modeling kindness. They also decide whether kindness will become contagious and scale inside of this organization, or through ignoring it or rolling their eyes, letting it, become an isolated incident instead of a contagious one, right? Contagious in a good way. The observer also can counter cynicism by embracing kindness. And if they see someone else, for example, rolling their eyes, they can say, hey, what are you rolling your eyes? That was really cool what they just did. We should do more of that, right? And it helps by observing and acknowledging and naming kindnesses, this observer gets to have an impact on how teams collaborate and how they connect. So that's such a powerful position to be in, is when you see someone doing an act of kindness. So not only does kindness improve the giver, it just feels good, right? To do something for someone else. It improves the recipient. They feel seen and cared for and valued and loved, right? So that recipient is getting so much a good vibes. And then the observer, when they acknowledge, it contributes to changing a work culture so it works for everyone. Observing and acknowledging, observing and acknowledging, observing, being an observer. Like I said, if you ignore it or just, you have to act on it. It is an active role. So kindness in general, just to continue to cement the idea that we want to be more kind, is it builds trust faster than competence alone. It reduces stress, like we mentioned, for you, for the recipient of your kindness, and for the observer, and that starts to really ripple out. It increases collaboration. It creates psychological safety, which many people are talking about how to do that. Be kind. You're creating an easy way, simple, available to everyone, right? And it shifts what people believe is possible. I talked about the belief at the top, about belief in our contributions, and that's what I'm talking about. It shifts what people believe is possible on a team, because they know that coming forward with an idea is going to be received with kindness, right? And so they're more likely to bring forth ideas that can contribute. It might not be the idea, but it contributes to the idea. It gets them going towards the idea. Or it's, noticing potholes and things that perhaps hadn't been noticed before. All of these things, you will shift when what people believe is possible for themselves, for the team, through kindness. So you don't change outdated cultures by slogans on the wall, or by ignoring toxic behavior, or protecting yourself. Just like, I need to keep this job. I need to keep this job. And here's the thing. I get it. Especially right now in this crazy market, we don't want to rock the boat, a lot of us, but that doesn't mean we can't be kind. Doesn't mean we can't be kind. So 3 things you can do this week. Try to be the giver. So look for ways to spread the form of love called kindness. You know my mission. If you don't, I will say it now. Spreading love in all its forms, its highest forms, trusting life unconditionally, and having fun. And today I'm talking about my personal mission of spreading love in all its highest forms. One of those is kindness. So you can do that this week. Become a spreader of kindness. You could do that by writing a LinkedIn recommendation for someone. Someone's asked you and you just haven't gotten around to it. You can offer specific praise to somebody. You can check in with someone without an agenda. You can drop a little thank you note on someone's desk. You can deliver a couple flowers to someone with anonymously. You can see your neighbor, see someone struggling with opening a door at the grocery store, and you open that. You can help someone on with their coat. You can thank someone. That is kind, for their, like, I go to the health club and there's this woman there that she's been there a long time, and she knows me, and but she made a point of, like, even before she knew me, she got to know me, right? Like, that was a form of kindness I received. Is she spent, I mean, how many people are at this health club? A lot. But she spent time recognizing who I was and learning my name. She has a gift of that. And then, hey, Lori, how are you doing? Have a great workout. That is such a simple form of kindness, lifts my spirits. So doing things like that. Number two, so those small acts that you do, both without even knowing it, and certainly paying intentionally spreading love in the form of kindness, can shift your focus from feeling threatened or unsafe to feeling like a contributor at work. And that alone will change, how you lead and how you participate. Also, notice when you receive. So if you're the recipient of kindness, notice it. Don't deflect it or minimize it. Pause, recognize it, name it, thank people for it. It's just really important when you receive. And I think we often will thank, but like just stopping and looking in people's eyes and saying, that really mattered to me. Thank you. Not just a simple, oh, thanks so much. You know what I mean? Like getting into that lower register a little bit where, where we know you're moving out of your head into your heart and you're slowing down the pace of the conversation to really genuinely say thank you. And then thirdly, because as the recipient, when you receive kindness, this is reinforcing trust and strengthens connection when you're the receiver of it, and then you're acknowledging, right? And then finally, be the observer. So when you see a kind act, call it out. Just say, that was awesome. You're so generous in, to those people. I love how you always think about so-and-so. I always forget to recognize them, like any of those things. Great job, acknowledging Susan on that project. She did a boatload of work on that project and deserves all of the kudos. And I love how you called it out in the meeting today. It doesn't matter if you're saying it to your boss or to a peer, it doesn't matter. Like titles and hierarchy, we're trying to break down hierarchy as we create a work culture that works for everyone. Right? And how we do that is kindness doesn't care what your title is, doesn't care how much money you make, doesn't care about any of that. Being kind crosses all borders and boundaries and brings us all together. So our kindness rally cry, we come together in kindness. Repeat after me. We come together in kindness. We amplify what we want normalized, aka kindness. We're changing work culture so it works for everyone. And kindness is does it bring tears to your eyes right now? Or is that just me? But kindness is such a simple way to have impact and make a difference in your work culture, on your team, with the stakeholders, with your clients, that ripples and ripples and ripples and ripples. And that kindness vibe, oh my gosh, what a difference it makes. So let me acknowledge and say thank you to all of you who have been a part of my career journey, who have supported me, who have been teachers for me, who have encouraged me. For those of you who have engaged me as a coach, I am forever grateful for that. Thank you. All right. I guess kindness is a very vulnerable. I can see why people would have waited. It is vulnerable. It is vulnerable. But more vulnerability like this. I am safe. I am not in any danger, and I am vulnerable right now. So I say thank you. I say keep spreading kindness, that wonderful, magnificent form of love, and be the doer, be the receiver, and acknowledge that, and be the observer calling it out. So thank you so much. Have just the best of weeks. Next week, our time has changed because I'm flying out to speak in Denver. Super excited to the Industrial Women in Industrial Design Conference and about designing your career. And believe me, it will include a thread about kindness. So there you have it. I'll talk to you all soon. But look for, we usually send out an email. So be on my, go to inspiretech.com, go to our primary website, make sure you're signed up for our career blog, and you'll get the reminders about when the LinkedIn Lives are. I think it's at 10 o'clock on Wednesday because I fly out Wednesday afternoon. But I can't be certain. I just am not the one to ask that question right now. I got to check my calendar. So that's it. Have a great week. Like I said, peace. Talk to you soon.